Hi guys, author Abhishek Thakkar here. I hope you all are staying safe and staying indoors. In today's video, I'll be talking about the age of Puritanism or the Puritan age. It is also commonly referred to as the age of Milton. Okay, today in this class, I'll be talking about the introduction or the orientation to the Puritanism age or the age of Puritanism. Okay, I'll also be discussing the literary features of this age, and I'll be expounding the characteristics of the literature of this age. Okay, so please watch this video till the end. I hope you find this video incredibly useful, and I hope it proves utilitarian in your studies of English literature. Okay, so first of all, the Puritan age started from the year 1625 and lasted till the year 1660. These years are extremely important from net point of view or entrance test point of view. Okay, you have to remember these dates. So the Puritan age started from the year 1625 and lasted till the year 1660. This age is named after the rise of Puritan movement. We have to understand that Puritans not only emerged triumphant or powerful as a religious force, they also emerged stronger or victorious as a moral and a political power. Okay, so who were these Puritans basically? They were English speaking Protestants. These Puritans were English speaking Protestants who were extremely unhappy and dissatisfied with the reformations or the changes or the amendments that were made by Queen Elizabeth. Okay, and how many types of Puritans were there? Okay, there were two types of Puritans. Okay, first is separating Puritans and second is non-separating Puritans. Separating Puritans. These Puritans basically wanted to separate themselves from the Church of England because they felt that the Church of England has become corrupted. There is a lot of corruption that is occurring in the Church of England. That is how they used to think. And so they wanted to separate themselves because they believed that the Church of England should be purified. There should be total, complete purification of the Church of England, and true Christians must separate themselves from the Church of England. So these were separating Puritanists, okay, or separating Puritans. The second is non-separating Puritans. Okay, as the word indicates, they did not want to separate. Okay, these were basically Massachusetts Bay colonists. They were basically colonists who wanted to reform the Church of England, but they did not want to separate themselves from the Church of England. Okay, so we can see the demarcation here that separating colonists wanted to separate themselves because they were unhappy with the reformations, while non-separating Puritans, the colonists wanted to reform but not separate from the Church of England. Okay, now as the word Puritan indicates, they emphasized purity. They wanted purification. Okay, they wanted complete purification of the Church of England. Okay, and they wanted removal of certain practices such as hierarchical leaderships. Okay, and they also wanted clerical vestments, and they wanted to remove this practice where the vestment indicates one of the articles. It indicates one of the articles of the ceremonial attire and insignia that is worn by ecclesiastical officers, which indicates their rank. Okay, they wanted to remove this practice of clerical vestment. They wanted to remove hierarchical leadership, and they also wanted to remove certain rituals which were associated with Rome. They wanted to remove certain rituals of the church which were associated with Rome. Okay, so Puritanism basically focused on purity. Puritans considered themselves pure. They did not consider themselves corrupted. They believed that the Church of England had corrupted, and they viewed themselves as pure Christians, and they believed that what they represented is pure and untainted Christianity. Okay, the Christianity that they represented, according to them, is untainted by historical amendments. We have seen that these Puritans were extremely vexed and flustered with the changes that had been made, during the age of Queen Elizabeth. They were completely against it, they opposed it, they vehemently opposed it. Okay, so Puritans wanted to separate themselves. Okay, and they stood for pure and unadulterated Christianity. Okay, pure and unadulterated Christianity, which has been untainted by the amendments, by the historical amendments that were made in the age of Queen Elizabeth. Okay, Puritans emerged as a strong political force during English Civil War, which started in the year 1642 and lasted till the year 1651. They were not only a religious force, as I had earlier said, as I had earlier emphasized. Okay, they emerged as a strong political force. They emerged as a strong political force, especially during the English Civil War, which started from the year 1642 till the year and which lasted till the year 1651. Okay, so this civil war, it is a series of conflicts. Okay, it is a series of conflicts between Charles I and his ardent and loyal adherents or supporters, which were Cavaliers on one hand. Charles I and his supporters, the Cavaliers on one hand, and on the other hand, the Parliamentarians. Okay, the Parliamentarians, which were also called Roundheads. They were also called Roundheads. They represented the middle classes. Okay, so it was a series of conflicts. Okay, not just a single conflict. It was a series of conflicts between Charles I and his supporters, the Cavaliers on one hand, and the Parliamentarians, which were also known as Roundheads. Okay, they were basically Puritan middle class. So this is very important. You have to remember this for your exam. Roundheads represents the Puritan middle classes. Okay, and in this civil war, the Parliamentarians emerged triumphant. They emerged victorious in the year 1651. So the English Civil War started from the year 1642 and lasted till the year 1651. Okay, in this war, what happened? What actually transpired? Charles I was executed and Charles II fled to France. Okay, Charles I was executed. What does this show? This shows the annihilation of monarchy. This shows that monarchy was demolished. Okay, monarchy was dismantled. The foundation of monarchy was completely destroyed. Okay, so we see a change. There is a divergence that has been perceived or noticed here. There is a conspicuous change. Okay, we also see that there is no hope for monarchy. Monarchy was replaced by the Commonwealth of England, which lasted from the year 1649 to 1653. Okay, it was followed by the Protectorate under the guidance or under the rule of Oliver Cromwell. Okay, under Oliver Cromwell's personal rule. Okay, so let's try to understand this. First there was monarchy, then the monarchy was demolished, then it was dismantled. Okay, then there was no hope for monarchy. No way that it could come back again. It could revive itself. So monarchy was replaced with the Commonwealth of England. Okay, Commonwealth of England from the year 1649 to 1653. Okay, and then came the Protectorate, which was under the direct personal rule of Oliver Cromwell. We know that the Parliamentarians emerged victorious. We have seen that the Puritans triumphed during this time. Okay, and they stayed in power till the year 1660. Okay, so the Puritans, the Parliamentarians won in 1651 and they stayed in power till the year 1660. Charles II had already fled to France in order to save his life. Okay, and so we know that Charles II was restored, I think around the year 1660. He was restored around the year 1660. Till then, Oliver Cromwell personally ruled the empire. Okay, now we have to understand why there is so much emphasis on purity. Okay, now if you remember the story of Adam and Eve, God had told Adam not to eat one particular fruit. Okay, but Adam disobeyed. Okay, Adam and Eve disobeyed, and the price of that was punishment of the sin. Okay, this indicates that our founding grandfathers, according to the Old Testament, according to Christianity, were actually involved in an abominable action, in a sin. Okay, they had sinned and they had rebelled against God. Okay, which indicated the nature of passion surging through humans. Okay, and these passions led to temptations. Okay, passion caused temptation. Okay, and that in turn led to sinful acts which were against the commandments of God. Okay, so Puritans were basically wanting to reform the entire structure. Okay, reform the entire Church of England. They wanted to remove the corruption. Their aim was very pure. Okay, we have to understand their aim was pure. Also, I have read that their aim was to give civil and religious liberties. So maybe they had a noble intention some way. Maybe, I'm saying maybe. But what actually transpired was something completely opposite. It was in complete contrast to what they had actually thought, to what they had actually envisioned. Okay, so the Puritans were denounced. They were accused of being narrow-minded and repressive. Okay, now we have to understand this, that when humans repress or suppress their desires, okay, then they cannot act according to their own nature. It will be against human nature. Okay, and human nature wants to do certain things, while morality stops you from doing certain things. Okay, but what is immoral according to a culture may not be wrong according to laws. Okay, but when we try to understand Christianity, when we try to understand Puritan Christianity, their emphasis, their focus was on purity, on complete purification of the Church of England, and they wanted man to completely control, to regulate the sinful tendencies, and not to be a creature of passion, but to be a creature of love and grace, and to be a creature who can completely control the Satan within. Okay, who can completely control the evil tendencies within. Okay, the Puritans were denounced as narrow-minded and repressive, but they actually aimed for religious freedom. Yes, as I said, that they aimed for religious freedom, they aimed for religious emancipation. But what actually happened was they created a prison, they created an inner mental prison. Okay, people could not follow their desires, and when the desires are repressed, immediately it causes a lot of melancholy, it causes a lot of pessimism, people become cynical, people cannot express themselves. Okay, why a person feels so happy when he expresses what he feels? For example, if somebody is feeling very sad and he cries, okay, and after a while we see the same person is laughing. When that person expresses, he doesn't repress his desire anymore. And where there is no repression, only then a human being can flower, only then he can grow. Okay, so this was the introduction to the Puritan age, or the age of Milton. Now I'll be talking about the features of age of Milton. I'll have a sip of water. Okay, so features of the age of Milton. In this age, there is a growth of Puritanism as a moral force, okay, as a social and moral force. Social force because it governed the society. Okay, the Puritan Christianity governed the society. How they thought, okay, was completely, how the people thought was completely dependent, how the people thought was completely dependent on the Puritan Christianity, which they considered as untainted by historical changes or amendments. Okay, second feature is its establishment as the controlling power of the state. So it was not secular. Okay, Puritanism completely controlled the behavior. It was sort of a thought police which tried to regulate the behavior. I mean, it did not punish people for thinking sinful things, but it tried to control that kind of behavior which could lead to sinful acts. Okay. And the third feature is the religious and political struggles. There is a lot of hostility between various religious groups during this time. Okay, I'll come to that in the coming part. Okay, so who were these Puritans? These Puritans were basically Protestants who disagreed with the historical amendments that were being made, and these Puritans had a very strict conduct of life. They had a very stern conduct of life. They were very orthodox actually. They did not have any idea of complete freedom. They did not want to liberate man from sin. Their focus was more on sin. Their intention was to purify man, but that is quite different from the way the person of Jesus Christ liberates us. I mean, if we see the Old Testament, we see the focus is on sin, on disobedience. But when we see the New Testament, when we see the life of Lord Jesus Christ, Jesus has already paid the price of sin and freed the mankind. So whosoever believes in Jesus is freed actually. Okay, so Puritan Christianity seems to be a little different from that version of Christianity. Okay, Puritans, this name seems to have originated around the year Shakespeare was born. This name seems to have originated around the year Shakespeare was born, and some people also say that this name, the Puritans, might have originated a year after Shakespeare was born. Okay, so this is also very important when we are trying to study for competitive exams. Okay, now there was an uncompromising spirit. According to William J. Long, there was an uncompromising spirit that had spread continuously and steadily among the English middle classes. Among the English middle classes or the Roundheads. We had studied in the earlier part of the lecture that the middle classes, the English middle classes, were called as parliamentarians or Roundheads. So the uncompromising spirit had grown steadily. And later on, but we see that it was not till the time of his successor that Puritanism emerged as a great national power. So Puritanism grew steadily, but when the successor came to power, Puritanism emerged as a great secular national, not secular but national power. Puritanism was completely in power. Now I'll talk about the causes of its success. First cause, fast growing flippancy and profligacy. Flippancy and profligacy of the upper classes. Okay, so there was a lot of you can say casual attitude. Okay, there was a lack of seriousness, there was a lack of somberness in the upper classes, not in the middle classes but in the upper classes. Okay, there was a lack of respect of seriousness in the upper classes, as well as there was a lot of reckless extravagance. Okay, so the word flippancy means lack of respect of seriousness. The word flippancy means lack of respect of seriousness. And the word profligacy means reckless extravagance. Profligacy means reckless extravagance. So let's try to understand this. The upper classes had a complete lack of respect for seriousness. They were not concerned with what was happening to the other lower classes, the middle classes or the lower middle class or the poor classes. Okay, there was no patriotic fervor, there was no unity. Okay, there was no unity, there was divisiveness. Okay, and where there is divisiveness, a new power can come and ultimately rule. Okay, so in the age of Queen Elizabeth, there is a lot of youth, there is a lot of vitality, there is a lot of devotion. Okay, there is a lot of devotion to Queen Elizabeth. There is a lot of unity, there is a patriotic fervor, there is this feeling of patriotism, nationalism. Okay, but we don't see that, we don't notice that in this age. Okay, and the upper classes were not that much concerned. They were not concerned with the plight of the lower classes. There was a sort of divisiveness. Okay. Second cause of success was the high hand policy of Laud and his determination to enforce his will by or through persecution. Okay, this caused a fierce conflict. In the religious world. Okay, it caused a great conflict in the religious world, because there was a sort of enforcement. Okay, there was no freedom. And we see that in the age of Queen Elizabeth tried to create peace between different sects of Christianity, while the same is not present here. Okay, there is a sort of enforcement even through persecution. Okay, the third cause of success of Puritanism is encroachment of Charles upon the rights of the commons and the constitutional privileges of the English people. Freedom was a myth during this time. Freedom was an aim, an intention, a noble intention, but not the execution. The execution led to the loss of freedom. Personal rights and privileges were taken away. Okay, so we also see that there is not a lot of romantic poetry or a lot of expressive poetry. There is a lot of intellectual poetry. Even in the poems of John Donne, we see intellectual poetry, not romantic poetry. Even when he's talking about love, there is a sort of a discharge of intellectual energy. There is a display of intellectual energy. Okay, so I'll also be talking about Puritanism as a political and moral and religious force. Okay, now after a stormy, turbulent period of civil war, it triumphed with the victory of Oliver Cromwell, and during the few years the Commonwealth, it was supreme. Okay, so Oliver Cromwell had triumphed. Okay, and we see that Puritans were not only a religious force, they did not only emerge victorious or triumphant as a religious force, but they were a social force, a moral force, and a political force. Okay, currently in India we see that there is secularism, the principle that where all the religions are given equal respect, but no religion is accepted as state religion. Okay, but here we see that Puritans were in power. So the Puritanist Christianity was governing the behavior of people. It was regulating the behavior of people. Freedom was merely a myth, and that myth, even if somebody had, was shattered. Okay, it crumbled into pieces. Okay, I'll also be discussing the Puritanism's pros and cons. Okay, because if we understand the pros and cons of Puritanism, we will better be able to understand and appreciate where the Puritans were right and where they might have been wrong. Okay, so that will help us develop our analytical ability as well. It will help us enhance our analytical ability as well. Okay, so what were the pros of Puritanism? So basically, they were having a noble spirit, they were having an honest spirit, they were honorable. Actually, their intention was honorable. They wanted to give civil and religious freedom. The intention is extremely honorable, and they are noble people at heart, good people at heart. But what did we lose during this time? Okay, there was a complete jeopardy of liberty. Okay, there was complete jeopardy of liberty. Liberty was completely destroyed. The idea of liberty only stayed an idea, it was never executed. Okay, it was fatal to the arts and sciences. Okay, it was extremely fatal to the arts and sciences. The arts and sciences which flourished during the age of Elizabethan age, during the age of Queen Elizabeth, did not flourish this time. Art, beauty did not, and poetry, the poetry of romantic emotion, of expressive emotion, did not flourish. Okay, people had an extremely narrow outlook. They believed that only their outlook is correct. They believed that what they thought is correct. They thought that exclusivity was the only right approach, not inclusivity. Okay, the people were very narrow-minded, very orthodox. A sort of bigotry was also there. There was a lot of religious hostility. Religious poetry replaced romantic poetry. Okay, treatises, political treatises replaced romantic poetry. We see that in this age as well. Okay, also people were very sullen. People were very tempered, very angry, and also the intention was noble. But what ultimately happened, compassion was destroyed. Okay, Jesus talks about loving one another. Okay, loving thy neighbor, even doing good to one's enemies. But what happened here is completely different. People's behaviors were regulated, they were controlled, and there was no freedom. So ultimately repression happened. We did not give human beings the right to be themselves during this time. Okay, So these were the pros and cons of Puritanism. Puritans were extremely noble and honorable. They were good people, but their approach led to the jeopardy of liberty. Their approach led to the jeopardy of liberty, and it was extremely fatal to the arts and culture and sciences as well. There was no uh, rational outlook towards life. Okay, there was no scope for natural outlook towards life. There was no scope for other viewpoints to coexist. Okay, only one viewpoint could exist, and people should follow it, or I should say must follow it. That was the kind of uh, idea that prevailed during that time. Okay, so I'll be talking also about the literature of the Puritan age. Okay, literature of the Puritan age. This was characterized by spirit of somberness. Okay, it was characterized by spirit of somberness. There was a lot of seriousness. There is a lot of seriousness. There is no scope for expression. People don't have the scope for entertainment during this age. There is a lot of seriousness. There is a lot of attention to everything that we are doing. Morality prevailed here. Okay, it was the victory of culture over nature, culture over human nature. Okay, secondly, religious poetry and political treatises replaced religious poetry and political treatises replaced romantic poetry. Okay, romantic poetry could not coexist. Even the poems written on love, even the poems written on love were displaying a sort of intellectual energy. Intellectual bent of mind was displayed. Third, it is beautifully said by John Richard Green that England became people of the book. England became people of a book. England became people of a book, and that book was Bible. And that book was Bible. One book was emphasized. There was no scope for other viewpoints to exist. Okay, because Puritans were very orthodox by nature. Okay, theatres closed down in 1642 during the outbreak of English Civil War. Okay, theatres were closed down. There was no scope for entertainment. Okay, why did this happen? Because in theatre there is a lot of discharge of passion. Okay, there is a lot of discharge of pretense. Okay, people pretended to be someone else. Okay, the actors feigned to be someone else. Okay, they were not being themselves, and passions were expressed on the stage. Okay, different emotions were expressed on the stage. Puritans were obsessed with the idea of morality and sin, and the focus was on purifying man, not on the expression of man. Okay, then there was a parliament's ordinance that was passed where no stage plays in the theatre were allowed. No stage plays in the theatre were allowed. Now this really caused a lot of reduction in the entertainment that was available to people. People did not have many things to get the entertainment or relish certain modes that we are able to relish. Drama was not available. Drama was almost non-existent during this time. Okay, people had very strict and stern religious views. The mindset was very orthodox. The intention was to liberate, but actually what happened is people's minds were imprisoned. They could not flourish. The intellectual activity regarding sciences could not flourish. Okay, there was a very stern religious approach, and this affected social activities. Okay, where there are a lot of restrictions, a society naturally cannot grow. As a whole, it cannot grow. Maybe it grows in a particular sector. For example, people became better human beings. Maybe they did. Okay, maybe they were more concerned with doing right and wrong according to a particular scripture, which is right from religious point of view. But what about the other sectors of life? Okay, what about the other sectors where people want to grow? From the economic point of view, from the artistic point of view, from the theatrical point of view, from the social point of view, people could not grow. People could not flourish. Their beings could not become radiant because there was a lot of suppression and repression. theater was considered immoral and depraved because it encouraged passion and pretense. Okay, passion and pretense was displayed on theater. Okay, theatrical activity simply exhibited the display of passion, the various emotions of human beings, and the pretense. People played characters which they were not. So Puritans believed that this could encourage lies, deceit, and a tendency of deception. Okay, so theatrical activity was completely non-existent. Even the stage plays were abolished due to the Parliament's ordinance. Okay, Milton, John Milton, as I said in the beginning part of this lecture, he was the greatest literary figure of this age. In fact, the Puritanism, the age of Puritanism or the Puritan age is also called the age of John Milton. John Milton is the most exemplary literary figure of this age. He is the greatest scholar of this age. Okay, in fact, this age rests on his shoulders. Okay, he represents the best of both worlds, the best of the devout and the best of the poetry. Okay, he showed a blend of expressionism, and he also showed a theological outlook, a devout's outlook. He was the best of both worlds. John Milton was also considered the representative of this age because we see that his works, his great work Paradise Lost, changed the way we look at theology. Okay, it is also considered one of the greatest epics till date. The way he has shown Satan, even though he wanted to glorify God, we see that Satan is the hero in the story of Paradise Lost. People are very fascinated and riveted by the character of Satan in this epic text. William J. Long identifies three main characteristics of Puritan literature. There was no devotion to a monarch. Okay, in the age of Queen Elizabeth, there is a lot of devotion. There is a lot of devotion to a monarch. People are very loyal, people are very adherent, and people are very supportive to a monarch. But in this age, there is no such devotion. Okay, and in the age of Queen Elizabeth, there is a lot of patriotism. While we have seen that in this age, why Puritanism grew? Because of the flippancy and profligacy. Okay, lack of respect of seriousness, and the reckless extravagance. The upper classes did not care about the middle classes or the lower classes. Okay, so there is no unity. There is a lot of divisiveness. There is a lot of division. Okay, Queen Elizabeth encouraged diversity. She encouraged variety of opinions to coexist. She encouraged diversity, diverse voices, diverse opinions, diverse ideas, and Queen Elizabeth worked hard to keep the peace. She strove really hard. She tried to keep peace between different religious ideas, between different religious sects, and that's why she is remembered till date as one of the greatest monarchs of our time. She encouraged art and culture as well. She encouraged art and culture. She encouraged expression. The human being's desire to express himself or herself. There was celebration of life, and life was celebrated in totality. While in the age of Puritanism, life was not celebrated. People were rather very melancholic, very depressed, very sad. Their desires were suppressed and repressed. They had repressed minds. Their entire being was sort of imprisoned. Okay. Second important characteristic of Puritan literature, this literature was characterized by a lot of melancholy and negativity. Okay, so the entire emphasis was theocentric, which means God-centered, centered around a personal God. Okay, and the other desires of human beings were repressed. They were suppressed. The desires of human beings were suppressed. In fact, many desires were considered sinful. They might indicate disobedience to God or a personal God. Okay. Creativity and innovation were crushed by the Civil War. Okay. Naturally, when there are wars and pestilences or famines, creativity will be crushed. Creativity will be impacted. In the pandemic also, many creative people have not been able to focus because they have seen a lot of loss in their life, and during this time creativity cannot flourish naturally. But when we come to the age of Puritanism, creativity was not encouraged, it was rather discouraged, and it was kept to a minimum. We see very less theatrical activity, actually completely non-existent theatrical activity. Even the stage plays were stopped. Okay, so creativity and innovation were crushed by the impact of civil war. People were very melancholic, people were very sad, people could not express themselves. Okay, they could not be themselves, and where a person cannot be himself or herself, he will naturally be very sad, he'll be very morose, he'll be very melancholic, very negative, very pessimistic, okay, very cynical of about the nature of human existence. Okay, where the focus is only on morality and not on expression, then a person cannot be happy. So this is what happened. Human beings became very melancholic, depressed, sad, cloyed. Yeah, and people's lives were governed by rules and regulations. See, the focus was on sin. The focus was on human nature to sin. Okay, human nature to commit sin, to commit mistakes, and focus was on judgment. Okay, the emphasis was on purification. Okay, but according to my opinion, I feel that Puritan Christianity was deviating from Jesus's Christianity. What Jesus wanted to say, Jesus wanted to liberate people. Okay, Jesus said, love one another and don't judge. Judge not, or else thou will be judged. Okay, but here the idea, the emphasis was on judgment. The people were basically creatures of sin and not born out of a creator who loved them. Okay, so that was the focus here. Focus was on loving one another and loving thy neighbor. According to Jesus, the focus was on loving one another. People should love one another and love one's neighbor. Okay, even love the enemies. But here we see that love is not manifesting, except love which is in the form of devotion, which is shown to the creator. That is only being portrayed, that is only being emphasized here. Other forms of love are not at all significant here. Okay, so Puritan Christianity focused on the idea of sin, the sinfulness of man, how man has been disobedient to God. So morality is in focus, culture is in focus, not nature. Human nature is not emphasized here. Human nature is not significant here, it is not relevant here. Okay, and repression naturally leads to depression. Repression naturally leads to depression because where there is lack of expressionism, people will be melancholic, people will be extremely negative. Okay, a person will feel stifled, suffocated if he is unable to express himself. Okay, repression indicates that people's voices are getting stifled, their voices are not given importance, their voices have no say basically. Okay, so repression naturally led to depression. And the third important characteristic of the literature of this age is no passionate poetry. As I've said earlier in the lecture, poetry was not passionate. Even the poems of John Donne on love show a display of intellectual energy. Okay, they exhibit a display of intellectual energy and not passionate poetry. Okay, we don't see a lot of passion, but the poetry of this age is also very intellectual. So basically, when we are trying to focus on the characteristics of the literature of this age, we have to remember that there is no devotion to a monarch. Literature was characterized by melancholy and pessimism and negativity. Okay, and the third important point is there was no passionate poetry, there was a display of intellectual energy. Okay, so these are the important points. I hope you found this lecture incredibly useful, and I hope it helps you in your studies. Thank you so much for staying till now, and do subscribe to my channel, and I'll provide much more useful content, and that will really help you a lot in your studies. Thank you so much for listening. Please do stay tuned to my channel.